Today, I had the pleasure of interviewing Ayanna Coleman. Ayanna Coleman is a business efficiency and marketing consultant with a background in the New York publishing industry and non-for-profit world who has a passion for supporting entrepreneurs and growth stage organizations. She has worked with New York Times best-selling authors, Grammy Award-winning artists, internationally sought-after speakers, inspiring non-for-profit organizations in the US, the UK, and Japan, and trailblazing entrepreneurs in their industry. When she moved to Japan in 2018, she pivoted her business and life goals and opened Quill Shift LLC, where she primarily works with entrepreneurs and organizations who know their passion and gift to the world, but don't have the exact expertise on hand to run a business around it. She helps them organize their business practices and marketing techniques so they can spend less time questioning if they are taking the right business steps and more time connecting with their ideal clients in a personable and professional way. Stay tuned for the second edition of our Business in Japan series with Ayanna Coleman. So Ayanna, thank you for being with the Lit podcast today. And I would just like you to introduce yourself to the people who don't know you.
So I'm Ayanna Coleman. I moved to Japan about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And when I moved to Japan, I had a business already called Quill Shift Literary Agency in the States. And so when I came over, I realized that I don't speak Japanese, so I can't really do literary agent work here. I can't read or speak the language, and Japan has such a robust publishing industry, but because I'm English-based, it was not going to be easy for me to get into this part of the industry in this world, in this part of the world. So I decided to kind of pivot my business because I've been working in marketing in the publishing industry in New York for the past 8 years, and so I pivoted Quill Shift Literary Agency to become Quill Shift LLC, which is my current business, and it's business efficiency and marketing consulting.
Great.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the business then.
So I am a small business owner, and through my past experiences, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of other small businesses inside the nonprofits and the small businesses. And so I have a deep love and understanding of the intricacies and the challenges and amazing opportunities that you have working in that type of environment. And so with Quill Shift LLC, I decided to stick kind of what I knew with what I knew and what I loved, which is working with nonprofits, small businesses, and entrepreneurs to help them with their marketing business efficiency. So what that means is helping them really hone in on who their target customer is and communicating with them effectively the amazing services and products that they have. And then on the business efficiency side, it's really about saying, look, you only have a finite amount of resources, and you need to use those efficiently, and the way that you do that is through processes and technology. And I come in and help people kind of look at their systems, see what's taking up too much time, see what doesn't have a system at all that you can create a system for, and streamline it so that they free up more time and space and energy to kind of focus in on their
core.
Exactly.
Okay, so you basically help businesses be more efficient at what they do, right? That makes sense.
Also, I've worked with women-owned businesses, so photographers. I've worked with yoga studios. I've worked with other business coaches.
Okay. So then it's also a lot of entrepreneurs that you're helping, and small, medium enterprises as well, right? Okay, that's very cool. What sort of structure is it? Is it project based? Are you working, in-house?
It's a little bit of everything. So I love project-based work. I started working hourly because I was like, you know what? I can do all of these things. I've done all of these things in the past. I put together packages for people depending on what they need. And then after I did that, kind of the first year that I was here, I realized that I was trying to be kind of everything for everyone, and that was allowing people to kind of make my business in a way that I didn't necessarily they want it to be.
Okay.
And so I was like, no, I need to be more focused and do the things that I actually love doing. Even though I can do these things, I don't love doing all these things.
Okay.
And I realized too that there are certain things that people may need that they don't know that they need if they choose this item or choose that item from like my laundry list of services.
Okay.
So then I started to create packages and make it more project based on those packages to really make sure that people that come to me for the marketing or people that come to me for business efficiency, they're actually getting everything that they need for whatever project they might have in mind.
Okay, but how do you then ensure that it's tailored to the specific business?
It's a lot of conversation.
Okay.
And so, say for marketing, if yoga studio comes to me and say, you know, I need to work on my marketing, what I would do is I would say, let's look at what you're currently doing. Let's identify what's working, what's not. Let's talk about your target customer. Let's talk about how you're talking to them right now. Let's look through your website. Let's look at the content. So that is with every business that I work with if they're doing a marketing package. But of course, then it's tailored very specifically to exactly what they're doing.
Oh, understood. And can you work remotely? I mean, in light of the current COVID?
I love working remotely. My last full-time position when I was in New York, I was the New York office, and the office, the main office was in Indianapolis. So basically, I was their remote office, and so I set up kind of all of the remote systems there to make sure that everyone was communicating well. And I just realized from that experience, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, there definitely should be more remote work, and people should be allowed to work remotely more because for me and my personality, it worked very well, and with systems in place, it works very well. So then when I came to Japan, I was like, well, I know that I can do this. And I know that I can work within companies and with clients remotely because I have these systems in place to make sure that the communication is effective and everyone feels like they're on the same page, even if they're not in the same room.
COVID was not a big impact to your business.
Not at that point.
Okay, so that's good. That's good. It's not everyone has that benefit, and it's not easy. It's not easy. I think a lot of businesses are struggling actually because of that. Trying to find how to transition actually due to this remote work. Also, you were working with some big brands. I saw it as well from your resume, right? So what got you to start your own business?
So I was in New York and I was working for a nonprofit that was focused on the children's publishing industry. And my dream for the longest time was to become a literary agent. I really wanted to work with authors and support and champion authors and be the one that kind of saw that like magic in their story and wanted to really be their advocate and help them get their story out there. And that's what literary agents do. They wear many hats, which I love. I love to wear many hats. I love to have broad knowledge about a lot of things so that I can kind of help people move forward with whatever path they're going towards. And so I was like, okay, children's books, working with authors, doing this advocate thing, yes, literary agent is what I want to do. And I was learning while I was in the publishing industry that there's not a lot of diversity. There's not a lot of diversity in the publishing houses. There's not a lot of diversity within kind of the other parts of the publishing industry. And when I say that, I'm talking not just about publishers, but about booksellers and librarians and kind of teachers and things like that, that all influence who gets the books into their hands and what types of books go into kids' hands. And for me growing up as an African American little girl, I was seeing that there weren't a lot of books that represented my life. I did not want the slave book. I did not, even though I loved American Girl, I love Addie, like she was like that was the only representation I had of myself. And it made me really sad and really upset. And as I was meeting more people in the publishing industry and learning about kind of the diversity initiatives that have been going on for decades, kind of in waves, I was also hearing grumblings from people about, well, it's the agent's fault because they're not bringing me the stories, or it's the editor's fault because they're not looking for the stories, or it's the marketing people's fault because they're not marketing the books when they actually get published. And so, like, if we don't see that there are sales, then why would we publish more? That type of thing. So it was a blame game going around. But the main part was talking about literary agents and the fact that they're not going out and finding the authors who are BIPOC or writing BIPOC characters. And so I said, you know what? Okay. I can be that literary agent. I can be that person who's exclusively looking for these types of stories, so that then I can usher them to the editors. And so that was what my agency was for. It was specifically to do that.
That was in the U.S.?
That was in the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started that in 2013.
Nice. We were talking about it in film industry. It's the same thing. There's an underrepresentation, I think, of diversity in general, and especially, I think, of the Black experience. So I wanted to ask you as well, what has been your experience, I think, in the literary world? You touched upon it a bit, but what has been your experience as a Black woman, and so as a Black, and then as a woman second as well?
It's interesting, in the literary world, there are a lot of women, so you don't stand out if you're a woman. And the interesting thing is that even though, and these numbers are nowhere probably near accurate, but I would say, like, let's say 2/3 of the industry is female, but of the 2/3 that are female, the people at the top, it's predominant. It's more male than female. Women working in the industry, but not a lot of women at the top of the industry making those decisions. And it's becoming better, but about 5 years ago, it's kind of like, what is going on? And then when you look at the numbers, when you break it down to different ethnicities and things, it's really, really bad. It's like 88% of the industry is white.
It's highly unrepresented.
It's highly unrepresented. So the part about me being a woman, yes, I mean, I was surrounded by women. I had a few African American female mentors, but you don't really see yourself in the publishing industry as an African American woman, as a Black woman, by and large. And so then it's very hard to see a trajectory of where you can go and have role models to kind of help you get there. So when I started my literary agency, I was very much alone, and I think people were like, "Oh, that's interesting. Good luck. Like, really, you're gonna do okay? Maybe it'll work." You know, there wasn't a lot of yes, this is needed. Like, let's go. You can do this. From my friends, from my family, but within the industry of the people that I mentioned it to, everyone's like, "Hey, good luck with that." And so because of that, I was so determined to make it work.
To make it work, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, though? That there's no support for, or even, you know, literary agents that actually go and try to find different stories? Because you would think that, that's their job, first of all, and also that there's a demand for it as well, right?
There's more of a demand. I started 2011, and there wasn't at that point in time, in the sense of people really understanding that there was a need. There were definitely people within the industry who really felt that way, and were working against a lot of structures in place that were hindering them from bringing those books in and getting the attention that they should have, which is depressing, right?
It is.
It's demoralizing.
Of course,
So, but like the We Need Diverse Books movement came out, the hashtag, and just more and more people pushing. I was a part of this initiative called the Children's Book Council's Diversity Initiative, and so we worked and did a lot of programs to help educate within the publishing industry about the need for diversity and supporting in-house and outside getting those books through. And so the demand and the publicity of diversity and the need for diversity within the publishing industry has risen over the past few years. Now, the number of books that are being published has not grown as much as people would hope because of that. But the recognition that there needs to be change is there now.
Because there's also a lot of, and maybe you can tell us a bit more, because I don't know much about the field, but there's a lot of Black also authors that are out there, right?
There's a lot of Black authors.
And who write for children, who write as well for adult audience. So what gives? How do they get?
What gives?
Yeah, how do they get their work published? How do they get out there?
The publishing industry is a tough one to crack, and it's more a lot of times socioeconomic. The disparities instead of racial and ethnic disparities. So it's also who you know and what you know, and who knows what you know, right? It is very much a bubble, and it's hard to find accurate information. There's a lot of information out there, but because there's so much and it's so dense, and you don't know what to follow and what is actually the correct way to do things, you can get very easily weeded out.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, the publishing industry, there's millions of books published every year.
Of course,
And so the agents and editors' jobs are really to, more often than not, of like finding the best thing. It's like weeding out all the things to then find that jewel. And so, you look for things that are wrong in submissions because you have so many submissions, so that's then kind of you see what rises to the top. And a lot of times, agents and editors, they're overworked, and they don't have the time that they may have used to, like in the golden years, right, of publishing. And so they're doing a lot of different types of things. They're not just editing, or they're not just making those connections and like getting the book sold. They're having to do a lot more to support the authors, which means that when the authors come to the agent, their stuff needs to be pretty good. And so then the problem then is, okay, well, there's education, there's understanding of just the publishing industry at large and like kind of what you're supposed to do, and if, say, a Black author understands the system at least to try and submit to an agent, if their query letter isn't well written, or if their manuscript isn't kind of at the level of writing that it needs to be, that puts them at a disadvantage. At a disadvantage,
right? Okay. And so you can also, part of what you do in your business, is it also to support in a company then these authors also increase their marketability or?
So when I was agenting, yes, that was something that I was doing. So when I took on a client, it was really about their potential and kind of helping them get to a certain point. Okay. But at the same time, you're working on commission, right?
That's the thing, right?
So you really have to balance all of that. Okay. It's a very interesting industry, but it's not one that is for the faint of heart.
I can imagine, right?
It's not. It seems lucrative, but it's definitely not.
It's not. Would you compare it at all to the music industry or the film industry at all, or is there no relevance?
I think there is a lot of relevance. There's connection to the music industry. The film industry, it feeds off of the publishing industry.
That's true, actually. There's a lot of books that get artists. Well, my favorite writer is Chimamanda Adichie, and she writes. Well, she actually gave a talk on TED once where she explained it pretty much the same thing that what you said. Where she said that when she first started writing, she used to write about how she would go out and there'd be snow, and mind you, she was living in Nigeria at the time, and she was writing on how it was snow and the apples taste fantastic, and she never had seen soil snow in her life, right? And that's due to representation. So, from your side, who is up and coming artists that you recommend people that they should check? That we should all look for?
So one of the things that I was always looking for were stories where the character is not white, right? They are a person of color, and but the story's not about them being a person of color. Okay. It's not about their struggle of being who they are, because that's not the everyday, right?
It's not a documentary about
seriously. Kids just want to have fun, right? They want to read stories that are fun and interesting and exciting. And so an author that I actually just recently worked with is Rena Barron, and she writes YA and middle grade, and that's exactly what she is doing. Is she is creating stories with strong characters, strong Black characters, where they're having adventures and they're having fun and they're dealing with the things that kids will be dealing with. Fantasy in fantasy world, but still, the values and imagination and the growing up and the understanding what friendship means and the understanding that the world isn't this as kind as they thought it was, and what to do with that, and how to move forward with these new insights around you, and they're all fantastically diverse, but that's not the point of the book. And so, or the books. So I would say like those types of stories, those types of authors, I would highly recommend. I also just recently read Brittany Cooper's Eloquent Rage.
Okay.
And so nonfiction, adult, and it was just eye-opening and fantastic, and I've been recommending it to everyone because it's she's an author, she's a professor, she is African American, she grew up in a single-parent household, she went to Howard University, she is like a feminist, and this book, Elephant Rage, talks about all of that. It talks about being an African American woman, being the first one to go to college, looking at race and feminism and the critical theory around those, looking at gender and how that comes into like politics and academia and all of that kind of stuff, and she wraps it up in all of her personal experiences kind of growing up and becoming a woman, and what does that mean, and what is society putting on her, what is she putting on herself to, like, at the end of the day, like, love herself, right? And I feel like a lot of women in general, but a lot of Black women struggle with this, and I know that I did growing up, being like, I know that I'm smart, I know that I have dreams and ambitions, but I also have felt bad about those things, that I'm not being Black, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not enough of this or that or the other, and what's wrong with being me. And so that book is just beautiful and relatable, and kind of encapsulates all those things. So Rena Barron for Wi-Fi in middle, or YA in middle grade, and Brittany Cooper for nonfiction adult.
And this concludes part 1 of our interview with Ayanna Coleman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for part 2 coming next week.